Welcome to In the Money. I'm your host, Daniel Dent. Over the last 20 years, I've worked with families and businesses, helping them become financially savvy. And I'm going to do the same for you. Each show, I share personal financial topics to help you make better informed financial decisions. College costs have exploded over the last 10 years. The average tuition and fees at private universities jumped 179%. Out-of-state at public universities jumped 226%. In-state universities grew a staggering 296%. In addition to learning how to pay for it, will you get your money's worth? Is that university and degree worth the price tag? Timothy Gibson, Director of College Guidance and Student Life with St. George's Independent School, is joining us today to talk about college scholarships, grants, and loans. If you plan on sending your kids to college or they're in college already, pay attention.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
We're discussing college scholarships, grants, and loans today. Joining us is Timothy Gibson, Director of College Guidance and Student Life with St. George's Independent School. Timothy, thanks for coming on today. We appreciate having you out.
Thank you very much for having me.
Before we jump into this, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at St. George's.
Sure. I am the Director of College Guidance and Student Life. I've worked at St. George's since 2009, helping students navigate the college search process. Everything from creating a list to making a final decision, and then helping with life outside of the classroom as well, so student government, homecoming, things of that nature.
Okay. You know, we had talked before the show, college costs are absolutely soaring these days.
Absolutely.
Over the past, I want to say 2 or 3 years, the average increase in tuition is about 3 to 4%. Historically, it's about 5%. Mm-hmm. How do you advise the parents and the students that you work with?
For me, this process is really designed around fit and making sure students are looking at every aspect of a college before they make a final decision. At St. George's, we define fit 3 ways. We look at academic fit, social fit, and financial fit. And you really need to have all 3 to make a good match. There's a lot of information out there, but we're fortunate that there truly can be a college or university for every student as long as they do their homework.
Yeah, I think that's interesting about the fit, because as parents sometimes we have a tendency to want to push our kids into our own careers or something that we always wanted to do, or especially if it's our favorite, college football team or something like that. But can you talk a little bit more about academic fit? What does that mean? What does that look like?
For me, it's making sure, if a student knows what they want to do, making sure that the college offers that academic program. That seems like a given. I used to work in college admissions, and the number of students who visited the school to which I worked with a particular interest that did not exist on that campus always amazed me. Students would say, I'm really interested in nursing. And I'd say, unfortunately, we don't have nursing, so you'd be better suited finding another school. And they would ask, well, what do you have? And for us, that's sort of putting a square peg in a round hole. So making sure if you have an interest, that's the start of your search. Does the school have my major? Yeah,
and I think then, too, you can rank once you know that they have those majors, how well those schools perform. So let's talk for a minute about social fit. What does that look like?
It's really life outside of the classroom. If you have particular interest, is the school in a position to match those interests? They're not going to have everything that you want necessarily, but if you're interested in athletics, do they have athletic programs that match your interest? Fraternities and sororities, community service, religious life, whatever you do outside of the classroom, if it exists on that campus, it could be a good fit. In this process, to me, there's no such thing as a bad college, but there are bad fits. And if a student falls in love with a school that does not offer opportunities inside or outside of the classroom that match a student's interest, that's a bad fit.
And so from a social standpoint, it seems like academics a little bit easier to find, or at least in my mind would be. From a social standpoint, how do you find out if that's a good fit? I mean, you can see online, but maybe college visits and things of that nature?
Yeah, the visit is key. When you look at the brochures, the one thing I always tell my students is every brochure is a marketing piece. So you're going to see happy people on a beautiful day, smiling with the biggest smile they've ever shown. You need to walk around on that campus, and you need to look for your people and recognize that it's okay to think this is a great school, but for whatever reason, it may not be my school. Talk to your tour guide, talk to other students, but also go off the tour a little bit and talk to students who are sitting in the library, in the cafeteria. Ask them, what do you like about this school? But also ask, what, if anything, would you change? Because at that point, you're looking for themes. I tell my students, ask what they would change, and tell them, besides parking, because parking is an easy answer. If it's food, if it's bureaucracy, whatever it is, if it's the residence halls, if that doesn't match what you're looking for, then then your search continues.
What's the top answer they give you when you ask that question?
Food.
Food, always food, huh?
And part of it is, at some point, you get tired of eating the same food. So even if your mother made your same meal every day, at some point you would want something different. Eating in a college cafeteria, even in the best college cafeteria, gets old after a while.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'd probably say the same thing. Let's talk about financial fit.
Sure.
What is financial fit?
It's really having a sense of how much money a family is prepared to put towards a student's education, and then what is the total cost. As you mentioned, college costs are skyrocketing, and I think parents who went through this process 20 plus years ago are always amazed at how much it can cost to go to any college or university, but particularly private colleges and universities. I have families who will come in and say, you're telling me that it costs upwards of $60,000 a year for school, and in some instances it can. So it's making sure that families are aware of what they're prepared to pay, and then looking for schools that will match that.
And in our earlier conversations, I believe you had mentioned, is it WEFC?
Absolutely.
And can you talk a little bit more about that? What
Most
is that?
definitely. When a family does the FAFSA form, the free application for federal student aid, and the CSS profile for schools that require that, you get an estimated family contribution. So that's the government telling you how much money they think you can afford. You need to have a dollar amount that you're comfortable paying. I tell our families that when all is said and done, it can be $5 a year or $5 million a year. You have a dollar amount in mind, and that starts this process. Tell that number to your child, and tell that number to your college counselor or guidance counselor so that they can help support the work that you're trying to do. There's nothing worse than when you go through this process and a student has their heart set on out of school and the family can't afford it, and it's April of the senior year. So when you say we can put $10,000 a year, $5,000 a year, and you know that at the start of senior year, or even better at the end of junior year, that helps create a college list that is manageable for everyone.
We had, I'd seen an article recently, and when you think about a college education, it's really an investment. And to me, it's how productive is that young person in society after
Certainly.
they graduate? And can they pay the loans back? Can they get a job? I saw an article recently that talked about students that went into, for lack of a better term, a non-traditional major. They were, I guess, I don't know a nice way to say this, a very extreme liberal arts major. Mm-hmm. And when they got out of school, they couldn't find a job. And in this article, a lot of them had moved overseas to try to escape paying back their tuition. The problem became when their parents had co-signed on it, it was damaging their credit and causing
Sure.
issues. So how do you help students choose a major, or how do you advise them around that?
To me, choosing a major is a challenge for some students because they feel as though they're making a decision that they're locking themselves into for the rest of their lives, when that really isn't the case. I met with a student today and asked, tell me if you have a dream job, what would it be? What are your favorite areas of study? Are there areas of study that you just don't enjoy? And that's different between what you're good at and what you enjoy. So you may be great at math, but if you're not interested in studying math, let's look in some other areas. And let's look at how we can use your strengths to help come up with some possible majors that will match your interests. Recognizing that many, many college students change their major over the course of their 4 years. So you may start off as a pre-med major or something else and land in another degree program that is a better fit for you. So it's also helping students understand the importance of being flexible.
Mm-hmm. And let me say this. I should have prefaced that last question with, I see a lot of value in a lot of liberal arts majors, and I see them bring a lot of value in everyday life. But with that said, you know, getting a degree in underwater basket weaving and paying $100,000 a year for it may not be the best return on your money. So let's take a break for a moment. We have to take a short break. We'll be back with Timothy Gibson in a moment. Please stay with us.
What do you think it would be like to teach? Chances are, you have no idea. Teachers today are breaking down obstacles, finding innovative ways to instill old lessons, proving that greatness can be found in everyday places, and that you don't need to be famous to be unforgettable. That's what it's like to teach.
Really? Buzz, what's up, man? You left some leaves burning out here.
Yeah, I just came in just for a second.
Come on, man. If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. You could torch the whole neighborhood.
It's a good point there, Smokey.
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back to In the Money. If you're just joining us, we're talking about college scholarships, grants, and loans. Timothy Gibson, Director of College Guidance and Student Life with St. George's Independent Schools, with us today. Timothy, thanks again for coming on. We talked before the break about about the value of college and choosing the right college and so forth and major. And we also talked about college being just tremendously expensive these days and getting even more expensive. Let's talk about grants and scholarships.
Certainly.
What's the difference? Because we hear about both of those.
Scholarships are based on some sort of merit. It could be academic merit, athletic talents, performing arts abilities, or something of that nature, versus a grant, which is free money. Truly, most families will take either because it's money that you don't have to pay back. A grant is something you're given, whereas a scholarship is something you've earned.
Okay. And as far as what the average grant or scholarships cover, is there a difference there? And what are the requirements around it, generally from what you've seen?
Sure. Grants, it really depends. A lot of grants are based on a family's financial need. So the greater need that you have, you could be eligible for a Pell Grant or grants from the state, versus scholarships traditionally do not have any sort of financial need component. So a student who is able to write a check to cover the full cost of an education could still receive an athletic scholarship or an academic scholarship based on their abilities.
Okay. Is one easier to get than the other?
It really depends on the student, and that's an answer that I give to a lot of families in this process, that it depends. You know, a high-achieving student, be it a good student, a fantastic athlete, could be eligible for a variety of academic and or athletic scholarships, whereas a high-need student should be eligible for a variety of financial grants based on the family's ability to pay for college.
And when it comes to the scholarship, I've seen a lot of commitments that come along with it, whether it's working on campus or doing some other things, certainly keeping your GPA up.
Certainly.
What are some of the main things that are requirements that you see these days?
For an academic scholarship, number one is keeping up your grades. And each school is different. So I tell my students, make sure you read the fine print there. We've seen scholarships, academic scholarships that require a 2.5 grade point average, but I've also seen academic scholarships that require a 3.75 grade point average. So you need to be aware of what the expectations are. A challenge when a student gets a scholarship that is a fantastic award, but that requires a 3.75 grade point average is there's little room for error. So making sure that a school recognizes that stepping into a new academic environment and potentially a more challenging academic environment may mean a student may struggle. A straight A student could get B's for the first time, and that should be okay in this process. That's part of the academic growth. So making sure if it's an academic scholarship, you keep your grades up. If it's an athletic scholarship, you maintain whatever athletic expectations they have while also keeping your grades up. If you receive a performance-based scholarship, so music, art, or theater, looking to see do you have to major or minor in the art program, or is there just a participation expectation? If there's a community service scholarship, and we're seeing more of those, are there a certain number of hours you need to complete in a week or in a semester? Being sure that you as the young adult in this process cover all of your bases so that you don't lose a scholarship at the end of a semester or end of the year.
So let's talk about the academic scholarship for a minute. Then I want to go back and touch on one of the others.
Sure.
With the academic scholarship, let's say you do go to college and it's a lot different. It's a lot more challenging. Or let's face it, you go there and just have a heck of a lot of fun for that first semester or two. Is your scholarship pulled in that first semester? Do you go on a probationary period, so to speak? Or does it just depend on the scholarship?
It depends on the scholarship, but it's very rare that a scholarship would be pulled at the end of the first semester. You get a grace period. They recognize that freshman year, there are a lot of transitions with freshman year, so they'll give you another semester to rebound, but depending on the hole in which you find yourself, rebounding is that much more difficult. So it's great for students to have fun, take full advantage of everything that college has to offer. But first and foremost, college is your job, and you're expected to perform at the best of your ability at all times. And first and foremost, that's in the classroom. Everything else has to come second.
Yeah, excellent point. That is your job, and not much changes when you get out into the real world.
Absolutely not.
Let's talk for a minute about the community service scholarship, because that's not something I personally heard a lot about, and maybe that's something that's newer, but what are some of the forms that takes, and again, the requirements that will take?
I had the opportunity to work some with our community scholarship programs when I worked at Rhodes, and it's the Bonner Scholarship Opportunity. And it's designed for students who've been passionate about creating change in their community in high school and who are looking to do that in college as well. Bonner programs exist all over the United States, and it's a great way for students who want to make a difference to receive a scholarship that supports their education while also encourages and pushes them to take advantage of opportunities that exist in their new community. So it's a great way for students to find additional support for their education, but also to engage in their new community over the course of their 4 years and beyond.
Yeah, that's a great alternative. That's a neat way to earn money. Let's talk about whether it's a grant or a scholarship. Is it a year-to-year commitment that the source of the funding takes, or the school gives you, or where you have to reapply every year? Or is it something where they commit for X amount of years as long as you keep up your end of the bargain? What
you're looking for is scholarships that you'll get that are renewable for 4 years. There are some scholarship programs that might grant an award for a year, and those are wonderful to get a $5,000 scholarship for your freshman year. The challenge is you've got 3 more years, and if it's not renewable, you'll be looking for opportunities to replace that $5,000 3 times. So I tell my students, first and foremost, look for opportunities that you'll get for your freshman year, and that depending on the qualifications, you'll renew sophomore year, junior year, and senior year. That way you know you're covered for the 4 years of your education.
So what if you're 2 years in, let's say? Do you have an opportunity to find other grants or scholarships, or will that negate what you've already qualified for?
You can always look for new scholarships. It should never negate it. It may add to what you're given, and if you've got scholarships and loans, you may be in a position to then replace some of the loans with additional scholarship money.
So we all want free money, or
Absolutely.
as close to free as possible. What are your tips on finding these scholarships or grants? How do we go about tracking this money down?
Certainly. In my experience, your best bet is always to apply for scholarships at the colleges and universities to which your student is attending. That is where you'll see the majority of your money. And do a scholarship search on those websites to see what's available. Many schools, particularly your large state institutions, make it very clear with a certain ACT score and academic profile, you qualify for a certain amount of aid. Other schools use a holistic approach where they look at your entire profile, so that's your grades, your grade point average, class rank if your school ranks, test scores, and extracurricular activities and references to make a scholarship determination. But there's a lot of money available for students through the schools. Beyond that, utilize scholarship search engines. Do something like fastweb.com. Put in your information, and it will send you a list of scholarships that could be a good fit for you.
Okay, great. That's great information. When we come back, I want to talk about loans. We're going to take another short break. More about college scholarships, grants, and loans when we return.
I think someone at my friend's school has this thing called autism. My friend's brother's son has autism. My neighbor's son has autism. My son has autism.
Autism is getting closer to home. Today, 1 in 68 children is diagnosed with autism. That's about a 30% increase in 2 years. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
Right, mi cariño. So like I said, everything I learned about cooking, I learned from Grandma's empanadas. Shall we go again?
Yep.
Mix the beef with the onions with the peppers with the paprika with the garlic with the oregano with the cumin. Got it?
Got it.
Throw in the olives, stir, season, stir again, pour out the flour, roll out the dough, make a circle, drop in a fistful of filling, fold over, press down, and ta-da!
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back to In the Money. We're discussing college scholarships, grants, and loans with Timothy Gibson. Timothy, before the break, we talked about grants and scholarships. I want to talk about loans for a minute now.
Absolutely.
If we can't get that free money, let's borrow it to pay for that education, right? So tell us what types of loans are available. What are the best types of loans that students should be looking for?
You're looking for, students will either get federal loans, so you've got subsidized and unsubsidized loans, and then you've also got a parent loan option as well.
And does it matter which one you apply for first or second, or do you make one application and then?
I think realistically, most families would like to apply for none of the above, so
Right.
Loans are the least popular part of this process. Traditionally, if a student applies for need-based financial aid, they may get a loan as a part of their process. Loans typically start at $5,500 for a freshman year. They go up to, I believe, $6,500 sophomore year, and then it's $7,500 for your junior and senior year. If there's additional money needed, then they may include a parent loan option as part of the financial aid package. That's something that a parent is eligible to pursue, but it's not required of the parents.
So $5,500, $6,500 a year, that may or may not cover your entire tuition amount, right?
Well, and that is in addition to any of the support that you receive. So traditionally, if a student receives, in the state of Tennessee, the Lottery Scholarship or the Hope Scholarship, it would go on top of that as well. So students are always in a position to turn down loans as part of the financial aid package. So you can pick and choose which parts you want to receive, but loans may be a part of it. And from a financial aid office perspective, they would say that loans are what they call good debt because it's an investment in your own future, and it's something that a low interest loan that you're paying back over the course of 10 years.
Yeah, and I think that's key what you said. You don't have to take all of the money.
Right.
Just take what you need, because that's where we see people get into trouble later
Absolutely.
on, when they actually have to pay it back.
Well, and take what you need to pay for school,
Right.
not what you need to pay for vacation or other things. And that's where I've seen students in the past get into trouble.
So when you start that process, and let's say you get some grants or scholarships, but then you need something to subsidize the rest of it, you need additional money. Do the grants and scholarships hurt your application for a loan, student loan?
They do not. In my experience, first and foremost, a college wants a student to have access to all of the free money to which they're eligible. And then loans come on top of that, not instead of that.
When should they go about starting this process, parents or the kids?
You know, for students, start the scholarship search process as early as possible. So my students can start, or any student can start in junior year, researching scholarships that could be a good fit for them going into senior year. The financial aid process, need-based aid, the FAFSA in the past has been available January 1st. That moves to October next year. So families will be applying for need-based financial aid for the class of 2017 in October of 2016, this year instead of January 1st.
So you really need to mark your calendar, it sounds like,
Absolutely.
so you don't miss these deadlines.
Absolutely.
If you miss the deadline, you're just through for the year. Is that correct, or is there some kind of extension period?
Well, October 1st is when the application goes live, but you've got lots of time. They recognize that particularly in this first year with an earlier deadline, we're going to do everything we can to ensure that families are aware of the earlier deadline, but we don't want people to be penalized because they just weren't aware. So there'll be some wiggle room for families, but the earlier the better. Particularly for a lot of the need-based grants, those can run out. So if you have significant financial need, the earlier you submit your applications, the more aid you may be able to receive.
Okay. We had talked about this a little bit before the show started. If you are a student and you're applying for scholarships, grants, or even loans, and you claim yourself on your taxes versus being under your parents, is there a benefit to that versus just as probably what most students have, just going up under their parents' taxes?
Well, it is difficult to be. You're expected to apply for yourself, but unless you are truly independent, there's an expectation that a family will also contribute as well. So it's not as easy as some people think that if a student can say, well, I will just apply as an independent student, unless you truly live on your own, you pay for yourself, and you do not receive additional support from any family members.
And I imagine that if you're going to do that, because I get that question a lot, and I say, well, if you're not truly independent, then one, you don't need to do that for your taxes,
Right.
but two, you don't need to apply for things because it's fraudulent in a way.
Correct.
And I would assume that you would have to show some type of proof, whether it's utility bill or rent or something for some time period, or maybe a previous year's tax return? Or...
Yeah, to be an independent student, it's a very long and significant process. It's not something that you can just do sort of on a whim or for the purpose of sort of navigating financial aid in a different way. So if a student were to be truly independent, a guidance or college counselor would help them navigate that process to ensure that they do it the right way and so that they receive the aid that they should receive, because that's designed for a very specific subset of students.
I have a question. This is for the parents out
Sure.
there. So If I have several kids and I know they're all going to be going to college at some point, or let's change it and say I've got 2 or 3 that are college age already or will be going to college, does that hurt or help my chances to get scholarships, grants, or loans for that matter?
Scholarships are different because those are based on the individual merits of a student, but for grants, it could certainly help because the government recognizes that there is a limited amount of money in each family, and if you're spending that money over the course of 3 kids versus 1 student, then you're dividing it by 3 as opposed to putting it towards 1. So you would be eligible for more, probably.
Okay. One more question for you too. We talk about return on investment for colleges. Again, when you pay for this tuition, whether it's loan or a grant or scholarship or out of your pocket, very important that you're able to get a job and pay it back.
Absolutely.
But it's not always the big name schools that have these big returns on investments. And again, part of it has to do with the cost of it as well as what you can do after school. I know locally, Christian Brothers University, they were recently ranked #1 in best lifetime return on investment. So not always the big schools, right?
Sure. Yeah, certainly. Once a student makes a final college choice, it's about what you do when you're there. Take advantage of internship opportunities, utilize the Career Services Office from the start of your freshman year. Take advantage of your summers to work, maybe do extended internships, so that you're positioning yourself to be a strong candidate for a great job after graduation. And you can do that from any school.
Great. Timothy, great tips. Thanks again for coming out. We appreciate having you today.
Well, thanks for having me.
A college education is not only a life experience for your child, it's a serious financial investment. Invest the time and effort to find the best scholarship and grant opportunities available. And remember, never borrow more money than you need with student loans. And like Timothy said, not for vacations, just for tuition and living expenses. Ask yourself if the university and course of study makes for a good academic fit, social fit, and financial fit. It needs to fit your son or daughter's needs, not just be your favorite college team or career you wanted when you were younger. If you don't, you might just end up with an unemployed college graduate living in your basement eating Cheetos and complaining about the Wi-Fi when you're trying to retire. That's all the time we have today. Thanks to Timothy Gibson, St. George's Independent School, and thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more shows, follow us on YouTube or Facebook at Germantown Municipal Television. You can also visit our website at www.gmtvonline.org. And remember, each person's financial situation is unique. Before making any decision, speak to a financial professional to see if our discussions today are in your best interest. We'll see you next month. I'm Daniel Dent, and now you are in the money.